Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going over 15 beginner tips that can help you improve your game slightly in Call of Duty Warzone. These tips are for people who are completely new and joining in the free-to-play Warzone, or some tips for people who are going from multiplayer into Warzone. So yeah, we're going to quickly go over each tip. I'll give you a brief explanation, and yeah, hopefully this can help you get them wins in Warzone. Tip number 1, a square minimap is slightly larger. So for anyone who didn't know, in the settings of the game, there's actually a few HUD elements that you can change, one of them being the shape of the minimap. The square minimap is about 5% bigger than the circle one, and we are estimating that it's probably about 100-meter square. That's going to just improve your visibility on the minimap and just give you that a little bit more clarity. Since changing to it, me and my friends, we've noticed a big difference. The second tip is actually another setting that you can do, and it's subtitles. I personally never had subtitles on, but I don't know if this is something that they might change in the future. But if you run subtitles on, it can actually give you some dialogue that's being spoke by an enemy team, whether they be reloading or they're reviving a teammate or interacting with anything in any way, because sometimes your characters can be quite loud. Tip number 3 is to do with how you earn XP in Warzone. This is mainly for the new players. So in the pre-game lobby, when you're running about and the timer's going down, if you kill people, you're actually earning XP and weapon XP. So it is actually worth to grind out as many possible kills as you can. Another way for earning weapon XP while in game, obviously other than getting kills, is to complete contracts. Contracts, no matter what type you do, gives you weapon XP. So it's going to be super useful for someone who is completely new and want to level up their gun quickly, because we do have a bit of an advantage for anyone who has owned Modern Warfare and has been grinding shipment to get all their weapons to max level. I personally have every gun in the game max level now, so I can choose whatever attachments for the loadout drops. The next tip is actually to do with how you deploy. So the parachute automatically deploys. So for anyone who's been jumping in, pulling their chute and then gliding down, there's no point. If you jump out of the plane, go straight to the ground, your chute will pull. There is a caveat though. If you have pulled your chute once previously, you will have to pull it before you hit the ground. So the first parachute pull is automatic when you get close to the ground, but if you pull it early and then cut it and re-pull it, it will not do it automatically. Second one is that double tap the sprint. So for the new players who might not be aware, there's tactical sprint now in this game, and there's actually a perk that buffs it up. But if you double tap your sprint button, your guy will hold his gun up and start sprinting. Whereas if you sprint normally, he'll carry it. One of the things you can do is double tap sprint, then slide. That then resets your double tap the sprint. Whereas normally, if you double tap the sprint, there's a bit of a cooldown. It's good for like avoiding the circle and getting places quicker. It probably is the quickest way of traveling, but normal sprinting is fine. Another thing, and this won't be as noticeable to new players, but one of the things for people jumping over from Modern Warfare to Warzone is the fall damage is a lot higher. So for example, I went back to play Ground War after playing a bit of Warzone, and I killed myself several times from jumping off a building. In Warzone, it seems to be like 2.5 stories ish where you'll drop and not take any damage. Any higher than that, you'll take it. In Ground War, if you're 2 stories, you're pretty much guaranteed to die. The other thing I've noticed in Warzone is you actually mantle over things that are slightly higher. So if you're used to seeing things in multiplayer that you can't jump over, it's probably worth trying it in Warzone. I know some of the Ground War maps, there's parts where you can't climb over walls and stuff that you can climb over on Warzone, around farm especially. But yeah, another thing is contracts. So I did briefly mention them. So picking up bounty contracts, you don't actually need to kill the person to benefit from this. So 2 useful things to do with the bounty contracts. First off, it gives you information on at least one person that could possibly be near you. So if you want to take them on, you can. If you want to avoid them, you can. Another good thing is if another team take out your bounty target, you still get a percentage of the possible winnings. So it is pretty much a win-win all round. The only thing negative about the bounty contracts from the attacker's perspective is that the person who has the bounty on them gets an indicator on how close the person is, but it doesn't give them directions or anything. Another thing is to do with contracts as well, and it's scavenger. If you've dropped into the map, you're in an area that doesn't have much loot, but it does have a scavenger contract, it's worth picking that up. You have to interact with 3 different contracts for the scavenger, but the loot is very worth it as well. On the very last crate, you're guaranteed a gas mask, which is very much worth it. I'd say you could be fully kitted by completing a full scavenger contract. It doesn't give away anything on your location. The only thing is that people might hear the crates being open, but that's very limited. Sometimes you might have to travel far, but scavenger crates, if you don't have very good loot, are always 100% worth it. The next thing is actually to do with loadout. So if you're free to play, this is where you're going to want to focus your weapon XP on a certain weapon when possible. So I know like something like the M13, which is very common loot weapon, that's something you'll be leveling up a lot, and you'll want to create a good class with it. So one of the key tips, regardless of what kind of gun you're using, fire rate and big magazines are key. There's something about Warzone where the armor isn't really affected that much about how much damage the gun does. It's more affected by the fire rate. That's why you might get mowed down by like an M13 or like a P90. I use an MP4 currently, and it melts armor. It's only then that the big damage weapons really do much is after the armor. Other than there's some exceptions, obviously, with snipers and stuff. And then the big magazine, because the time to kill is higher in Warzone compared to standard Modern Warfare. So yeah, as well, maybe as a wee bonus, you can throw in some mobility. So something like the M13, MP7 is probably really good for the new people in the game. Another thing is actually to do with whenever you're taking out a squad. So if you're in a gunfight with a team, there is an indicator every time you get a kill, being whether you got a headshot, long shot, or whatever. There's also an extra pop-up that says team wipe. This means that you've completely wiped out their squad, and you can probably calm down if there isn't another squad there with you. So very vital, nice bit of information. If you see team wipe, then you've killed that squad completely. Also, if your team is telling you they got team wipe because only the person that does the last kill sees it. The next one is use recon drones. So I don't know if enough people do this, but recon drones are always lying about the map, and they're pretty common. If you're in a squad of 3 people, if one person gets a recon drone, just throw it up. They last quite long, and they can go really far, and they'll give you some vital information on squads around you. So that's another really useful beginner tip. Use recon drones. Another one is the gas mask. Let you survive 15 seconds in the gas without taking damage. So 15 seconds doesn't sound like a long time, but if you're trying to run around a wall, trying to get that little bit extra of a run before the zone takes you out, the gas mask is very vital. Never go past the gas mask, always pick it up. The last 2 might be a bit self-explanatory, but it's worth buying armor pads. Armor pads are only 1,500 in the buy stations. If you get 1,500 and you only have 3 armor on you and none in reserve, I think it's worth buying armor pads. You should always have them, so in case you get any damage at all, keep your armor full. And that actually leads on to our final tip, which is remember to armor up. So yeah guys, that's been our 15 Call of Duty Warzone beginner tips. Hopefully you find these useful. Hopefully they get you some wins in Warzone, and make sure to tune back into the channel for some more tips.